Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Ghost stories, please.
Lowell Ghost Stories on X. You must be new here. X is a place where we discuss astrology, divination, dreams, delusional conspiracies, and mental illness.
So true, but in memory of old X, I'll post. It's a real story, though 100% of the X-Files here will claim it's not. Friend's house is claimed to be haunted. Many people have died in it. The first family to live in it lost an adult to a heart attack. Later, another family lost an infant to an outbreak of black mold. As time passes, my friend's family moves in. His dad ends up with brain cancer and dies in his sleep. About 12 years later, his mom dies of another kind of cancer, again in her sleep. My story takes place after his mom died. Be me at a party. Went to bed, not passed out from drugs and alcohol, but just tired. Woke up a few hours later and found all my friends are gone. They left to get food. Okay, home alone, sit up on the couch and rub my eyes. Suddenly, television turns on to static. Confused, I figure I sat on the remote. Search for it, can't find it. 360 turns on, cycles through the menus by itself. They're playing a prank on me. Nope, they're several miles away at Taco Bell. Maybe the dog is on the controller. Nope. Look around, find the remote and controllers away from me and the dog, defuk. Movie is selected and starts to play. Skips forward, pauses, rewinds, pauses, skips chapters, pauses, restarts at the main menu. System shuts off and television goes mute. Call friend freaking out. He laughs, says that's normal, smell burning, look down the hallway. A smoke-like fog begins rolling out of the bedrooms. Noped out of there.
Be very young, I mean like 5 or 6 years old. My mom and I are sitting in the hallway and she's teaching me how to tie shoelaces since I was getting too old for Velcro. The hallway connects to the living room and kitchen. The hallway is quite long with a closet in the other end. I remember sitting with my back to the kitchen facing down the long hallway. Mom is sitting opposite me with back to the hallway. The door to the closet was open since my mom was cleaning when I asked her to teach me to tie shoelaces. I remember seeing the coats in the very back of the closet start parting, like someone was hiding behind them, peeking out. My mom looked behind her into the closet. When she saw my attention kept being drawn there. Phone rings, Mom goes to answer. I stay there because she says she'll be right back. I kept looking into the closet at the end of the hallway, trying to see basically anything. All of a sudden I see a pale face kind of appearing in the darkness between the coats that had been parted. Mom comes back. The pale face just blends back into the darkness, and Mom of course doesn't see anything. I tell her what I saw. She says I was imagining things, and finishes teaching me how to tie the shoelaces. Mom goes to get dinner. I go to the closet. Kinda scared, look through the closet, check behind the coats. Nothing there. Get yelled at by Mom for making a mess with the coats. Later that night, I hear Dad kind of chastising my mom about how they have to keep the closet locked at all times. Their bedroom was next to mine, and we had thin walls. This convo was late at night, so they probably thought I was sleeping. I was scared of the closet door for most of my childhood. When I left my bedroom at night to use the bathroom that was in the middle of the hallway, I'd always feel like something was reaching out to me from the closet, even when the door was closed and locked, which it always was. I asked my dad about the closet, and he flat out refused to tell me why the closet door was kept locked until I was 17 years old. He finally told me the story of how when we moved into the house, I was 1 and my sister was 3 at this point. He had discovered a hatch to a small attic above the closet. He hadn't known about it since the lock to the closet door had been broken off, which meant the closet door hadn't been opened for about 4 years. Last resident. He removed the door, put in another door without a lock and just a regular door handle. One day he was hauling up the small hatch to store some old things us kids didn't use anymore up there. He said the air up there went from regular room temperature to being cold enough to see his own breath in about a minute. He said he felt a really bad feeling, like someone was about to attack him. Dad was ex-Special Forces, had seen plenty of combat. He claimed that feeling was stronger than any fight or flight he'd felt even in war. He turned to go down the ladder and he felt something grab his shirt from the back, literally lift him off the ground. Dad is 6'3" and 230 pounds of muscle, ex-military, currently firefighter. Then whatever held him let him go, sending him falling down the hatch, legs catching in the ladder, so he fell head first onto the floor and got knocked out. Dad had yelled when he was first grabbed, so my mom was already by the closet door when Dad came tumbling down. She said she saw his legs dangle above the hatch when he was suddenly dropped. Dad said that Mom had looked up the hatch after checking on my dad, and she had seen a black form move to the hatch, almost like it was looking down on them. It was so big it completely blocked any view of the attic, just the hatch and then darkness. Mom threw the ladder away from the hatch, slammed the hatch shut, dragged Dad out of the closet, slammed the closet door, and then just sat there with him knocked out and her crying. Later that day, Dad bought another door, this one with a big lock. And that is about it. Might seem disjointed, but this is what I can recall from about 15 plus years ago.
When I was little, I stayed in an apartment complex that was pretty old. My family and all our neighbors always had weird stuff happening to us. Had bad dreams every night, always about death, namely burning or some form of immolation. Badly burned myself when I was 2, got 3rd-degree burns on my finger. Found out later I burned it on a bathroom radial heater, somehow touching the red hot part, even though there was a protective cover too small for my fingers to reach through. My grandma upstairs would often see a woman in white sitting on the couch whenever she was home alone. My aunt mysteriously fell down the stairs after she described someone pushing her down, but she was the only one on the stairs at the time. The complex would always have blackouts, and our complex only. The surrounding neighborhoods were untouched. A few years after my family moved out, they found some weird bones in a garden patch in the complex. I can't remember dreams I had last night for the life of me, but for some reason I clearly and distinctly remember almost every dream I've had there. They were unsettling, disturbing, and terrifying to me when I was a child.
Okay, screw it. I'll share a story too. This one takes place in my grandma's farm. Long story short, a huge-ass farm in the middle of nowhere. She lives there with my grandpa. And my great-uncle had a house not so far away from my grandma's. As years went by, he was pretty old and couldn't even get up his bed. This is where I come in the story. That time I was there visiting, and my grandma had the routine of checking on the old man at around midnight every night, just to check if he was still on his bed and all that. He used to fall from it by moving around. Grandma asks me during the day that if I could go check on my great-uncle around midnight just to see if everything's all right. Time goes by flying, and I didn't notice. It's 3:20 or so a.m. already. I already promised my grandma that I would take a look. So here goes nothing. It's pitch dark, and I have a shitty flashlight walking right into the darkness of the night. I've never been a scary guy, so I just chill and walk staring into the sky and how beautiful it is when there's no city lights around. Finally get to the house. It's big. I see light inside. I guess it was my grandma that left the lights on. Come in to check. He's still awake, just chilling there, staring at the ceiling. Start chatting with him for a bit. He asks stuff about the past and whatnot. He was senile already. He was probably around 97 years old or so. Asks a lot of farm-related stuff, to which I just replied that, yeah, everything was fine and all that. It probably was around 4 a.m. and I'm like, all right, time for me to leave and for you to rest. He said thanks for visiting him and all that. He only had a lamplight that you could see from the outside of the house, old ass that barely had electricity. I'm about to turn the lights off so I can go home to rest too. Hey Anon, wait a second before you leave. What is it, Uncle? Since you're leaving, can you say to that guy in black in the back to leave with you? He's been watching me all day now and I don't like him. I literally froze for a second there, turned around to check, but there was nothing there. Huh. Sure, Uncle, I'll try to take him with me. Thank you, Anon. I turned the lamp off and I shit you not sprinted the hell out of there. Went to my house with this weird feeling on me. I got home and tried to sleep. It took me a long time to finally fall asleep. Next morning, I saw Grandma crying in the kitchen when I woke up. Grandma, what happened? Your great-uncle passed away last night, Anon. To this day, I feel a little guilty about leaving the old man on his own there with whatever was there after him. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to be there with you, Uncle.
A few years ago, at a funeral for some kid who OD'd. Didn't really know him personally. Friend of friend type of deal. I just go out of courtesy. Before the funeral, at the wake, standing outside the funeral home in the hot-ass sun wearing a suit, question why I even bothered doing this. Others who knew him better are sniffling, and some are coming out crying. Not to sound edgy, but I really didn't give a damn, and just felt awkward. I'm in the back of the line, which is outside of the building. Because it's so big, I'm just staring off into space, waiting to get inside. Gaze up at the porch of the funeral home. I shit you not see the dead kid. Just standing there looking pissed off or sad. Knew what he looked like because he always wore this jean jacket, thinking it was cool. He's wearing the same jacket now. Stare at him a few seconds to make sure I'm not just seeing things. Turn to my friend and ask if he sees that. See what anon. Look back, and he's gone. Chalk it up to the heat? Yeah, must be the heat. Get inside. It's open casket. He's buried in the same jean jacket. Also later at the actual funeral, swear to God, I thought I saw some figure off in the trees wearing a jean jacket.
I've got a story. It's somewhat anticlimactic, but it's one of those things that happened that I just can't explain. At my best friend's house, who has told me multiple stories about his house being haunted. It's a nice upscale house that was maybe 20 years old, so naturally I'm thinking he's full of shit. Stuff being rearranged, his picture falling off the wall in the middle of the night, house alarm going off for no reason. Dog would go to a corner of the living room and bark at nothing at early hours in the morning. So one afternoon on spring break, we grab lunch and bring it back to his house. Mid-conversation, I heard a little girl laugh. Sounded like toddler age. I must have had some sort of awful look on my face because he asked if I heard it too. Now, spring where we're from isn't exactly freezing, but it's not that warm either, so the windows weren't open, ruling out any outside noise. There were no televisions or radios on, and we were the only people home. We immediately grabbed kitchen knives like we're going to fight some little girl ghost. We basically Sam Fisher our way around his house like a couple of morons and found nothing. We saw his sister pull into the driveway a few minutes after and had to explain why we were walking around like that. Like I said, just something I've never been able to explain or really understand. There was another incident that happened a couple years later when we were in college, and I just never mentioned it to him because I'm fairly certain it was sleep paralysis and I didn't need to fuel the fire.
So tell us instead.
Sure, I don't mind sharing. A year or so after the incident, we're in college and his parents are leaving for the weekend. They asked him if he can stay over a few nights to watch the house. I pick up some beer and the night goes pretty normally. I decide to crash in his sister's room, who apparently was the recipient of most of the paranormal stuff. In the middle of the night, I woke up and felt like almost a static feeling over my entire body, and like I couldn't move. I swear I saw a shadowy figure at the end of the bed, grabbing at my ankles, and I was internally losing my shit. I ended up kind of passing back out, and the next morning it all felt pretty surreal. So I've read about sleep paralysis, and I feel like that fits the bill pretty well. Not sure if it was really a paranormal thing or just a screwed up night of sleep, so I figured it wasn't worth mentioning to my friend.
I guess I'll share mine. Me, 27. Broke, living in Grandma's rental house for free. It's a shitty house in a shitty neighborhood in a shitty rural town. So poor that I can't even afford a toilet seat. Only furniture is a small TV someone gave me when they upgraded, a love seat I found on the side of the road, a mini fridge, and a mattress I got off Craigslist. The basement is creepy, but it's where the shower is, so I have to man up and deal with it. Live alone, I should mention, and my neighbors are all of the weed is for weaklings, we shoot meth into our eyeballs variety. So I have no friends around me to run to for safety. Get off work and come home. Eat ramen and go take a shower to wash away the stink of my minimum wage day. Crank up the hot water and ignore the feeling that someone is going to grab my shoulder and spin me around so they can drive an axe into my face or spook me to death. Sing along to classic rock to calm myself. Shower curtain starts moving like there's wind. Read shower curtain as old sheet I found when I cleaned the place out to move in. It's cold, suddenly, so I step completely under the water, assuming it's just that the hearing kicked on. I keep it at 60 degrees so the bill is low. Hear banging from the dryer. It isn't on. What.jpg. If you're a ghost, could you please leave me alone because I already hate my life enough, and I don't want to be homeless, bro. Don't feel watched anymore. Stuff still moves around from time to time, but I feel terrified anymore because I don't feel like anything is focusing on me. Turns out my great-grandpa died in the basement when he was trying to repair some pipes, so maybe it was him, or maybe it's just me thinking it's ghosts when it's actually nothing at all.
I have a few, but I'll reiterate the most dramatic one I experienced. Be a younger version of my present-day self in 2003. Be employed as a Nightwatchman, security guard, on a building site. The building site in question is actually an old mental hospital dated back to the mid-Victorian era located in northern England, Seapick. Much of the old hospital is being demolished, and luxury houses and apartments are built in its stead. Some of the old admin and ward buildings are being renovated and converted into flats. My job finds me assigned to guard the old hospital building from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. nightly. I'm alone most of the time. My ex-girlfriend, who lived very near the building site, would come and keep me company on occasion, and also a friend and co-worker, and I would sometimes split our shifts and keep each other company. What is left of the old hospital includes several ward buildings and an old domed ballroom that has a collapsed roof and is exposed to the elements. On several occasions, but only ever when I'm alone, I hear music coming from old ballroom. Music is strange, waltzing-type music and emanates from the ballroom but fades and disappears every time I get close to the ballroom to investigate. When I get back to the security office, temporary shack on the site, music is back, playing very clearly. Another security guard who worked there reported exactly the same thing. Another, more sinister occurrence was the feeling of being watched constantly. New Year's Eve 2003. I am sharing a shift with a friend, so we are just chilling. I'm pretty tired from drinking the night before. Dozing off in chair as friend makes coffee feel sharp prod, like a finger poking me in my leg. Think it's my friend waking me up, but he's on the other side of the room a good 10 meters away, and there was no way he could have poked me, then dashed 10 meters across the room in the time it took me to open my eyelids. This happens 3 times in as many minutes. On the 3rd time I am prodded by something unseen, I look down at my wrist. I'm in the habit of doing this as I wear a watch, but had forgotten to wear it on this occasion. As I look at my wrist, I see, scratched into the skin almost as if to draw blood, a capital letter H. Not easily spooked, but this is weird. Show a friend who is there, who is also baffled by the scratch's appearance. Weirded out a bit, but dealt with it and carried on working there for another 6 months until the contract expires. Pick is taken a couple of months before I left. Episode remains with me, not frightening me, but more perturbing me regarding its meaning. 3 years later, I'm now living 350 miles away from an old hospital on an isle off the south coast. Get a call from an old friend's mother, not the friend who used to share shifts. Friend has ended himself with an overdose of antidepressants. Upset about this and lying in bed with my girlfriend later that night, notice the scratched letter H has reappeared on my wrist in the exact same place as it did 3 years ago. The surname of my friend, who in Hero began with the letter H, show girlfriend, and she freaks out a bit and doesn't want to talk about it. I'd told her about the previous episode of scratching. Finally figured out what the letter H scratched into my skin meant. I've had other experiences since, and also before, but nothing quite as overt or intense as that episode. A lot of ghost experiences tend to be quite abstract, obscure, and very personal. Not always dramatic, but rather quite subtle. Also of interest is that seeing shit like this runs in my family, as both my mother and father claim to have had ghostly experiences of their own. My mother's experiences are far less benevolent and more sinister than my father's encounters. My parents live in an old village cottage that was built in 1763, and both my folks and myself have had several experiences in the cottage, but I shall save those for another post.
Happened to me last summer, working as an intern at the law library. The library has floors and floors of old law books that are only accessible to staff. To save energy, the library places motion sensor lights on these floors. These lights only turn on the main walkway lights, does not turn on the lights on the individual stacks. Library term for aisles. To turn on the lights in the stacks, you literally have to flip a switch on the shelf, otherwise you'll be looking for books in the dark. Get an assignment from my supervisor to find specific types of books from Central America. Books located on the floor where no one ever goes are pitch black before the automatic aisle lights turn on. Find the stack where books are housed and turn on the light of the stack. Spend like 2 minutes looking for a book. Find it with no problem. Go turn off the light stack light switch. Notice the chair in the main walkway. WTF. Well, no matter, gonna leave anyway. Switch stack light off. Start walking away. Realize that the floor is brighter than normal. Do second take of floor. Realize that every stack on floor has had their light switch turned on. There be like over 8 stacks on this one floor. Quickly run through the floor and switch all the lights off and get the hell out of there. Told my supervisor. Said that floor always gave him the creeps, hence why he had me get the book. Dick. Pick related.
I got one. Be me. Be 15. Me and a friend like to ride our bikes around our town looking for spooky stuff. Not sure if he's still into it, but I certainly am. The graveyard near my house is pretty freaky. There are mass graves, unmarked graves, pretty much a recipe for scary shit. But this story isn't about that graveyard. Oh hell no, it's not about the graveyard. There is a trail up into the mountains by the local library. It leads up to a bare patch on the mountain. Local legend says it was home to a school, which burnt down under strange circumstances. They think there was nobody inside at the time of the fire. Strangely, despite the lack of deaths, there is apparently a ton of paranormal activity. Us being dumb 9th graders decide to go up there to check it out. At midnight. We were probably being dumb, but to avoid the curfew police we wore these homemade leaf suits and stuck to the shrubbery. It worked. We had a bunch of low-grade camera equipment with the exception of a decent night vision camera. This is gonna be good. .jpg. We spent a bunch of time setting up the camera stuff, microphones, his digital recorder, the night vision, and we get to asking questions. Did not capture any electronic voice phenomena at all. We go home in the morning disappointed. When we get back to his house, his parents are asleep, and I told my mom I was going to go over there early in the morning so she wouldn't have me home when she woke up. We plug up the cameras to see if they got something. About 4 hours of us asking basic questions. Until we get to the 4 hours, 13 minutes, 22 seconds. I think mark. Right there on the tree line. A shadow. It's got arms, it's got legs. About the size of a kid. Nope. Bat, we freak out. We are renowned for being the biggest cowards at our school, so no big surprise there. We knocked over the camera and it corrupted the video.
So the shadow appeared when it was around 4 a.m. Kid-sized and shaped shadow in an abandoned area would spook me too in that context.
It scared the hell out of us. I miss that place. I would move back if our old neighbor wasn't a witch. I'm pretty certain she was one.
I can see why you miss that place. I grew up in a much fancier house than that, but yours is one of those which make me wish I was an American. It has that certain kind of feel to it.
Alright, so that house in the picture used to be pretty great, until it got messed up after pissing off a certain crazy neighbor with a restraining order. This all started when we moved in. The first person we met seemed nice and we talked a bit. She hit it off with my mom and they chatted for a while. Things took a turn for the worse, however. A year after we moved in, she started acting weird, and at one point I saw her staring in our window. My mom told her off and she got pissed and started yelling. We went on a family trip and left the dogs and cats in the care of my grandparents. We get back and the first thing that happens is my mom checks her Facebook feed. In the middle of the night while my grandparents were asleep, she had broken in and taken pictures of our animals, going so far as to call us abusers. Get a restraining order the next day. All was quiet for a week. When I was playing Xbox down in the basement and in the grandfather clock reflection, I saw a shadow with a ponytail pass by. I dismissed it as my sister's friend who always wore one. When I brought it up at dinner, my sister told me her friend was on vacation in Florida. About a week after seeing the first shadow, I began seeing them everywhere. There was one in particular that loved the bathroom.
I ended up covering the mirror because I was worried I would see some skinned face in it. One night while I was in a Skype call with some friends and playing Counter-Strike, my only female friend, let's call her Anne, screamed. I clicked out of my game and asked her what was going on, and she told me to look behind me. This is not going to be some movie cliche, and there was nothing there. Hell, no. Turn around, a huge-ass shadow, remember. I'm a little coward, but if there is one thing I don't tolerate, it's someone or something in my room. I'm super religious Catholic at this point. Run out of room, grab our holy water, and start throwing that. There wasn't a single wall that wasn't spattered with holy water. I started yelling at it to get out of my room and get out of my house. My mom comes in and asks me what is going on. Nobody is allowed in my room. Pelt her with droplets of water. Come to think of it, it may have saved her life. The next morning, she asked me why I was pelting her with holy water. I tell her about the shadow in my room. Her eyes become the size of dinner plates, and she tells me she saw one in her room too. At this point, I have used every last drop of our water and just took our iron cross off the dinner table and put it under the pillow. Problem solved. The problem isn't solved. This continued for about 6 months until we had a Catholic priest bless the house. We never had an issue inside again. Emphasis on inside. He only blessed the main house, not the garage, not the chicken coop, and not the property. I had no issues with shadows inside my house, but outside I was stalked relentlessly. The large shadow that was in my room sat at my window for about an hour at a time every night. Thinking I was mostly safe, I flipped it off regularly. I was wrong. I went out to feed the chickens at 1 a.m., the usual time for me to feed them. Right as I walk out of the coop, I'm thrown down the hill. We have makeshift stairs down it so we don't slip during the spring. My shin smashes into it. I have a huge ass bruise on my leg, get property blessed, never have issues again.
This one is from back in 2012, October 16th, my 17th birthday. 2 friends and I decided to stay at my family cabin by the Iowa River for the weekend. My family and I spend the night there at least once a month, so I know the place like the back of my hand. My dad started building it when I was 6 and finished when I was 8. Around 2 a.m. on Saturday night, friends and I decided to stroll along the road to a nearby pond, less than a 1-mile, 15-minute walk, and stargaze in the grass. We all dig astronomy, so we like doing this kind of shit. Set out on the gravel road. About 10 minutes passed without much happening. Hear faint rustling in a woods nearby. Meh, probably just a deer. Rustling intensifies. .jpg. Defuk is that, get this. Something with stubby legs and long-ass arms comes walking out onto the road on all fours. We freeze. All 3 flashlights are all on this thing about 30 feet in front of us. It vanishes. Not like a sudden pop kind of vanish, more like a fade away kind of vanish. We get back to the cabin, lock the door, and spend the night watching Young Frankenstein while keeping our eyes glued to the door.
There's an old abandoned elementary school about 30-40 minutes away from me. It's still used to this day primarily as a daycare and meeting center. Half of the building is unused but still stays up. Decide to sneak in late one night and look around. Climb up on one side of the building where there's a window, open it up and take a 7-foot drop into the gym. Start going through the school with one of my friends. We go to the 2nd floor and find a string hanging from the ceiling that leads to a sort of tower of the building. Pull it and a ladder comes down. I climbed up first because he was too scared to. Cobwebs all over the place, really old and black. Help friend up. Start looking through things. We both have a bad feeling, but my friend is the only one to act on it. He starts to go down the ladder. I hear breathing behind me. Go to turn around, feel something push against my head to prevent me from turning around. Hear laughter. Start climbing down the ladder like a madman, stepping on my friend's hands. We fell to the floor and whatever was up there slammed the door shut. We ran like hell back to the gym. My buddy boosts me up to the window. Once I get up, I turn to see the window is closed. There was a handprint on it from the inside. There was no way my friend could have jumped that high or for me to have done it. I practically bust the window open, pull him out. We ran back to the car and drove away. There was a light on in the tower. This church has a very similar tower, but aside from that, the buildings are completely different.
Be me. I am the main character in this story. I am myself and not anyone else. My neighbor is an elderly woman who used to be a prison guard, very old and very nice to my family, and would even take care of my little brothers when my parents would get home from work late. Always fed us, gave us snacks, and let us play in her backyard. to pay her back. We always offered money, but she would never accept it, but she would take food when we grilled some outside. Christmas comes around, 2015 Christmas. We don't hear from her. Remember, she would say she was thinking of visiting her daughters. We all assume that's where she is. Time passes. We still don't see her on New Year's or weeks after that. We get scared and wonder why she hasn't been back. It is almost February, and my little brothers claim that they see her through the windows just waving at them. This isn't creepy, because she would always do this. Get home one day from school, look up to her house. Light turns on and see a shadow in her window. The blind opens and I see her just standing there staring at me with the most serious face. Wave at her and give a friendly smile. She waves back and closes the blinds. I notice that the mail has been stacking up on her mailbox. Think nothing of it. A few days later, the police arrived and asked my family if we had seen her around. Tell him that we've seen her several times waving at us. He tells us her family hasn't seen her in months. They end up going into her house after no one answers the door, as a precaution that something happened to her. A few hours later, see a body being taken out. We all get scared shitless because she was our nanny. The police tell us by the look on her body, she has been dead in her house for almost 2 months. Okay, fine, whatever, she's been dead before Christmas, New Year's, and the times we saw her on the windows. Panic and pray for her.
Random stuff that happened in our house, somewhere before and after 2010. Type of detached house build after the Second World War, for the families of soldiers who fought in the battlefront. These happened usually when I was alone. Small kids running around and giggling upstairs. Step-grandma heard it too one time. Faucets in the water closet and kitchen go on full pressure for no reason. Upstairs doors opening and closing. Footsteps on stairs from upstairs down. I had my room on the 2nd floor. Wake up in the middle of nights. Feel like somebody's watching. Hear weak sounds downstairs. Music, talking, etc. Somebody just standing behind my door. Wasn't really. Kids running around and giggling in the master bedroom. Only a thin wall between it and my bedroom. Many times when I slept in the basement. Hot summers. Much more pleasant to sleep in the basement. Hear faint footsteps coming down the stairs. Stairs made fully of concrete. Wake up in the middle of the night. Feeling watched. Computer or phone's light go on without any logical reason. Something crawls on the floor, out of my sight. Never feel alone. One time our freaky neighbor boy, friend with my stepbrother, came to our house. I heard the front door open and close. Went to check and that goddamn kid just stared at me. I said to him that my brother is not home. He still stared at me for a while, then got out. Pic somehow related. House looked a lot like that.
All right, I suck at Greentext, so I might as well do narrative. Anyways, around 2013 I lived and still live in an apartment above a bar. Around 2013 the bar was closed down due to fights and selling to minors. After 2 or 3 months after the bar closed down, I started noticing some strange but subtle things beginning to happen. You know, doors being open after I shut them, cupboards randomly swinging open, all that shit. Slowly, over the course of weeks, things began to progressively get worse. Cupboards beginning to slam open and shut. Same case with doors. My sink randomly began to turn on, and me, who lives alone, is terrified. So being me, I just suck it up and tell myself to deal with it. At this point, I was incredibly paranoid, to the point where I would sleep with the lights on and put blankets over the windows just in case I look outside of it and see something staring back at me. So basically, my house ends up looking like a druggie house with all my windows blanketed up at night and all my lights on. Paying the electric bill was fun for sure. So about a few months after the activity began to spike in frequency and intensity, it suddenly stopped. But still, there was that ever-long presence of something lingering around, waiting. You know that feeling you get when you're being stalked? That feeling, except more subtle, and for some reason that made it scarier. Anyways, yeah, so one night, about 2 months after that has stopped, I actually managed to stop being as paranoid. I shave, shower, and well, I go out. With this, I end up meeting a girl, we go out on a date, blah, blah, all that, and well, that night when I come home, my house was absolutely trashed. Like seriously, the fridge was toppled to the ground, cupboards wide open with plates strewn across the floor, chairs placed on their sides, blah, blah. So my first thought was that I was robbed, and I went to check my savings. When I get there, all of my money is still there, the jar being completely untouched. The scariest part about this is that mostly everything was stacked perfectly or laid down perfectly, not at an angle, but just pointing. So then I had begun to rebuild my poor trashed apartment, and then I noticed something weird. All of the meat in my freezer was missing. I still haven't found it to this day. So yeah, after this, everything just kind of stopped, and I no longer get that stalked feeling. I don't know if someone was stalking me. I don't know if it was a ghost. I really don't know.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.